All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking open the original blueprint for the human body. We're going to look at the absolutely wild construction story of two of our most essential organs, the kidneys and the lungs.
I mean, really think about that. How does our body go from a single cell to building these incredibly complex, perfectly functioning systems that are meant to last for decades? It's a staggering feat of biological engineering. So let's see how it pulls it off. To get our heads around it, we have to look at the actual plans, the blueprint, you could say. We're going to explore the embryonic construction plans, starting with the body's super sophisticated filtration factory. You know, any good construction project starts with the right materials. For our kidneys, that raw material is a specific layer of tissue called the intermediate mesoderm. You can picture it as this special ridge of cells running right down the embryo, basically tagged with a sign that says, "Future urinary system right here." Okay, and this is where the story gets really interesting. You'd probably assume your body just, builds your kidneys once and calls it a day. But nope. It turns out nature is a big believer in practice makes perfect. So, to get those two kidneys you have right now, working away in your lower back, your body first has to build, well, how many sets do you think it needs to practice on? 3. That's the answer. An incredible, kind of wasteful sounding, but ultimately brilliant process. It is just amazing to think about. The kidneys you have right now, they're basically the third and final draft. Your body literally builds and then gets rid of two earlier versions before it creates the final masterpiece. So let's look at the timeline of how this all goes down. Really early on, around week 4, the pronephros shows up. It's basically a ghost kidney, it doesn't work, and it's gone almost as fast as it appears. Then the mesonephros takes over. This one actually functions for a little bit, like a temporary filtration system, but then it too mostly disappears. Finally, around week 5, the metanephros starts to form, and this is the one that sticks around for good.
Okay, now for the main event, the actual construction of our permanent kidney, the metanephros. And this isn't built from just one piece. It's more like this elegant collaboration between two different parts that have to come together just right.
So you've got two different construction teams that have to work in perfect sync. You have the ureteric bud, which is like the plumber. It grows out and forms all the pipes and the plumbing, the collecting ducts. And it grows into the second part, the metanephric blastema. That's a specialized cap of tissue that's ready to build all the tiny, intricate filtering units. They have to grow towards each other and connect with absolute precision for any of it to work.
So how do you actually build one of those millions of tiny filters, a nephron? Well, it happens in these 4 stages. First, cells cluster together. Then they form a little hollow ball. This ball then stretches and twists itself into an S shape. And finally, a tiny bundle of blood capillaries pushes into one end, creating the glomerulus. That's the microscopic filtration engine. And your body does this about 1,000,000 times per kidney. But wait, their work isn't done. The kidneys are actually built way down low in the pelvis. And then, in this incredible migration, they have to travel all the way up to their final spot near your lower back, and they even rotate 90 degrees along the way. If this little road trip gets interrupted, you can end up with what's called a pelvic kidney, which is a totally fascinating anomaly where a perfectly good kidney just decides to stay in its starting position for life. All right, so that was the filtration system. Now for Act 2. We're going to shift gears to the body's ventilation system. And the lungs? Well, they have an even humbler beginning. That's it. It all starts as just a little trench in the floor of what will eventually become our throat. From this simple groove, a little bud pushes outward and starts a journey of branching and branching and branching again, kind of like a tree growing in fast forward, to form our entire set of lungs. But as this branching happens, it's not perfectly symmetrical. The right lung bud branches into 3 main lobes, while the left one only splits into 2. So why the difference? It's to make room for your heart, which sits right there, tilted just a little bit to the left. And this little bit of asymmetry has a very real practical consequence, because the main tube, or bronchus, going into the right lung is a bit wider and steeper. It creates a more direct path. So if you ever accidentally inhale something you shouldn't, like a piece of food, it is far more likely to end up in your right lung. So the branching continues, creating all the airways. But just having the pipes isn't enough. The lung isn't ready for air just yet. The final stages of development are this frantic race against the clock to get ready for the single most important moment of our lives, that very first breath. Lung development happens in 4 big overlapping stages. Early on, it's really just about forming the tubes. Then, blood vessels start to cozy up to those airways, and suddenly, breathing actually becomes possible. After that, the tiny air sacs, the alveoli, start to form. But get this, look at that last stage. It continues all the way until you're about 8 years old. That's why protecting kids from things like smoke and pollution is so critical. Their lungs are literally still under construction.
But even with all the tubes and blood vessels in place, there is one final, absolutely crucial component required. Without it, the lungs would just collapse after the very first exhale. So what is it?
The answer is a substance called pulmonary surfactant. The best way to think about it is like a detergent for the inside of your lungs. It breaks the surface tension of the fluid that lines those tiny air sacs, and that keeps them from sticking shut and collapsing every single time you breathe out. It literally makes breathing possible from one moment to the next. And this is exactly why producing enough surfactant is a life-or-death milestone for a developing fetus. If there isn't enough, that's the main reason premature babies can develop respiratory distress syndrome. Their brand new lungs simply can't stay open on their own.
So when you just step back for a second, what you see are two completely different but equally brilliant engineering solutions to two very different problems: how to filter your blood and how to exchange gas with the air.
And this table just sums it all up beautifully. You've got different starting materials, totally different key functions, and completely different wow facts. For the kidney, it's that incredible story of building 3 different sets just to get one perfect pair. And for the lung, it's the fact that the construction project isn't even done when you're born. It keeps going for years.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? We have just scratched the surface of the blueprints for our kidneys and our lungs. So it begs the question, what other astounding, elegant, and just mind-boggling feats of engineering took place to build the rest of you?